And we are now recording, and welcome to those of you joining us via YouTube. On the TCF side of things, I want to thank Itasca Bank for sponsoring this webinar. Sponsors like Itasca Bank help us to keep these webinars free for everybody. Contact me for more information if you know somebody or have a business that might be interested in sponsoring. You can also help us to keep these webinars free. After the webinar, you're going to be taken to a page with a bunch of resources of things you might be interested in that we provide from TCF, such as our native plant guide, rain barrel information, and so much more. But also our join button is on there too. So if you're enjoying these webinars, I encourage you to help TCF continue to do all the awesome stuff that we do, because we do so much more than just webinars. If you click that join button, you can become a member and then enjoy the wide variety of members only stuff that we have available, such as our upcoming plant sale. So if you are a member, you can purchase your plants online on April 30th. That is Friday. Our plant sale then opens to the general public on Saturday and Sunday. So if you're interested in some native plants, you can get in a day early before things start to sell out. So good tip for you there. Upcoming webinars, as I mentioned, we've got all kinds of great webinars coming up. Next week, May 5th, we will have Singing Insects with Carl Strang, the author of Singing Insects of the Chicago Region. He's really awesome. And if you have attended Wild Things in the past, you may have seen him. He's a really great educator. So, and he'll have a lot of great information and help us figure out what we're hearing as we're coming up onto spring with all those singing insects. And then on May 12th, I will be back to talk about Made in the Shade, how to landscape in shady areas with your native plants. All right, with that, I am going to turn it over to my good friend, Chris, who is going to tell us all about our Operation Pollination and natural heritage areas. So take it away, Chris.
Thank you, Jamie. I also want to do some research regarding your native plant sale, because I have some people who I want to refer that to, who are down in Chicagoland and may want to speak or buy some plants. So welcome today, everybody, to today's presentation. My name is Chris Stein, as Jamie mentioned. I'm a park ranger with the National Park Service. I've been a park ranger for the past 4 decades and have worked in national parks across the USA and in some places around the world. And today I find myself having the opportunity to work with fine people like our co-presenter, Anna Koval, who is the executive director of the Illinois and Michigan Canal National Heritage Area. And today's program will be split between me presenting about Operation Pollination, and also we'll take a special trip on the Illinois and Michigan Canal. So thank you, Anna, for being with us today. So with these national heritage areas, some of them have gotten into this program called Operation Pollination. And I'd like to tell you about that in today's program, and then tell you what organizations can do to get involved with this project. This is what we call a connected conservation project, or a large landscape conservation project. It's really, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of what Operation Pollination is, but it's really just a framework. It's not a prescription on what anybody should do to engage in habitat restoration or education, but it's really just a framework that recruits a diverse array of organizations to get involved with pollinators. 2 goals: restore pollinator habitat and educate people about the importance of pollinators. Why do this? First, I think most of you on this call are pretty environmentally astute. Pollinators provide these free environmental services. They are responsible for the reproductive success of more than 85% of the world's plants, more than 85%. Yet in the past 50 years alone, they have declined by more than 45% across the globe. This is a global environmental issue. I should say a global environmental crisis, because if they continue to decline at the rate that they've declined over the past 45 years, what are we leaving for our kids and our grandkids? I believe that most of you know the pollinators, who they are: the bees, the wasps, the flies, the beetles, the butterflies, the moths. I've recently learned that the male mosquito is also a pollinator. Who would have thought that? It's only the female that takes a blood meal to provide her eggs a certain protein that they need. Go figure. But some birds are pollinators, like the ruby-throated hummingbirds that may fly through your neighborhoods, especially there in Chicagoland, if you're from Chicago area. We have tropical bats that are pollinators, fruit bats. We also have some small mammals and reptiles that are pollinators. This is the only quiz I'm going to give you during the course of today's presentation. And because I can't hear you, it's kind of hard to ask a question. But the question is, what's in this photograph? I get a lot of people who respond to me when I ask this question. It looks like a beetle infestation in a forest. Well, it is a forest. It's the Oyamel fir forest on some mountaintops in Mexico. And that burnt orange is actually this: monarch butterflies. Millions and millions of monarch butterflies. But despite the fact that this photograph looks like there is no problem, the monarch butterfly has declined by more than 90% since the 1990s, more than 90%. And I mentioned the monarch because it is such an iconic species that we all remember from our childhood. But it was because of this loss, the loss of the little things that run the world, is the reason why Operation Pollination was developed and conceived to share with organizations like National Heritage Areas. Okay, here's the nuts and bolts of Operation Pollination. It's a real simple project, 3 easy steps. 1, you issue a pollinator resolution. 2, you issue a pledge form to organizations who might want to do work for pollinators aside from yourself. And then you put the names on the back of your resolution. Now, I mention this because there could be some of you on today's call who is with an organization who would like to get involved in something like this. So again, issue a resolution. This is a resolution that was recently issued by a Rotary district in Chicago. They introduced this resolution and are now recruiting their 62 clubs, over 2,000 Rotarians, to get involved in the project. They developed a pledge form. This is not their pledge form, but this is a pledge form. And by the way, there's a website where you can find these pledge forms. I'll share that website in a minute. It's called operationpollination.net. But as you can see, all organizations, whether they're large or small, government or non-government, for-profit or not-for-profit, are invited to be part of Operation Pollination. And there is no judgment with Operation Pollination. If you want to plant 3 milkweed seeds, that's great. If you want to restore a prairie, that's great too. It all depends on your organization's capabilities and capacity. Again, no judgment, no big brother coming to check up on anybody. Then you put the names of the organizations who have enlisted, or have you enlisted, on the back of your resolution. So resolution, pledge form, names on the back of your resolution, and you get media attention. And you will get widespread media attention for this if you embark on this journey. I just want to give you a little bit of history on the project before I turn it over to Anna. Operation Pollination began as the St. Croix Valley Pollinator Partnership back in 2015, when 3 federal land management agencies got together and decided that we liked working with each other. That's a big deal, by the way, to have federal government agencies like to work with one another. That's a big deal. So these agencies were the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And Anderson Windows, up here in the St. Croix Valley, where I'm speaking to you from today in Minnesota and Wisconsin, they put on a nice opening celebration for us, which was attended by our own U.S. Congresswoman, Betty McCollum, who at the time was the chair of the House Interior Appropriations Subcommittee, a good person to know. Betty is a real fan of pollinators, and we thought that she would like to attend. We were right, and she helped us kick off the event. The second part of Operation Pollination's history was when the national heritage areas in the United States got interested. In 2018, I was now working with the national heritage areas in the Midwest regions. My territory, by the way, is from North Dakota to Ohio to Arkansas and back up to North Dakota. And I work with the 8 national heritage areas in that geography, including Anna's Illinois and Michigan Canal. And you'll learn about the canal in just a minute. But I asked the 3 heritage areas that have orange diamonds to get involved, and they did. And I'll just go through them real quickly with you. So those are the 3: Northern Plains in North Dakota, Abraham Lincoln in Illinois, and Motor Cities around Detroit. So the heritage areas, they're large lived-in landscapes that have nationally important stories to tell, but they're not protected like your traditional national park, where the government owns and manages the land. Heritage areas are generally managed by non-government organizations, like Anna's organization, in some cases state government, or other cases a university. But the 3 heritage areas that enlisted in this project back in 2018, they are run by not-for-profit boards, just like the Illinois-Michigan Canal. So the first one was Northern Plains National Heritage Area around Bismarck, North Dakota. Northern Plains, the story there is of Native American agriculturalists, the Mandan, the Hidatsa, the Arikara people. They were performing agriculture along the Missouri and its tributaries long before European settlers arrived in the area. Also, the stories of the Lewis and Clark expedition. You may remember that first winter out, the Mandan provided shelter for the Lewis and Clark expedition. And if not for the Mandan's protection, that expedition may not have gone through. Also, westward expansion and the Indian Wars. Those are the themes of Northern Plains. So the executive director there, Aaron Barth, he issued a pollinator resolution, and he asked his partners to join. And this was the first year, 2018. These are his partners that joined and signed a pledge form. So you can see those partners are a diverse group of organizations, ranging from state government, a university, to a brewery, or to an electric utility. So quite a range. The second national heritage area that I requested help out or experiment was one in Illinois, Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area. The story of this heritage area is Abraham Lincoln's life prior to his rise to the presidency. And great place. You know, like many heritage areas, they have special programs like their Lincoln Leadership Academy. They do a book series. You can actually bring Abe to your community, a reenactor to your community if you'd like. And you can have the Lincoln Douglas debates done all over again. But I asked Sarah, the executive director there, if she would join Operation Pollination as an experiment. She had to do a little twisting of Abe's arm, but they joined, and these are the partners that Sarah recruited that first year out. And then the third heritage area I asked to experiment was Motor Cities National Heritage Area around Detroit. Motor Cities is the birthplace of the automobile industry in America. You may not associate right off the top of your head Motor Cities with pollinators, but there was a really good connection there. And these are just some of the projects that Executive Director Sean gets involved in at Motor Cities, like a pocket park and kids programs and a sign program and an awards ceremony for people who celebrate automobile history. But Executive Director Sean Palmaville-Size, she also had a nice celebration for pollinators. And these are just some photographs from that celebration that she had. These are some of the companies and businesses and organizations that she recruited that first year. Look at that. Ford Motor Company, General Motors, pretty amazing stuff. And these are just the first year out. I don't know how much they've grown since this time because I don't keep track. As I said, no one's coming to keep track. If you are involved in an organization and you want to get involved in the Operation Pollination Project, all you have to do is go to the website, operationpollination.net, and see how it's done. I will ask you this, though. If you do get involved, please let me know so I know it's happening somewhere else. So these are the reasons why a National Heritage Area gets involved in Operation Pollination. And they apply to you. Some of them apply to you just as they do National Heritage Areas. Number one, I think applies to all of us. For a healthy planet, everyone needs to get involved in habitat restoration or education activities. When it comes to National Heritage Areas, they have incredible networking skills, right, Anna? And they are very capable of networking and getting others to help them do their work. In addition, everybody knows about pollinators, but I would say that not everybody knows about National Heritage Areas. Am I making a correct statement, Anna? Yes, okay. I just want to make sure. So, you know, while this is primarily done for pollinators, it can help elevate the status of a National Heritage Area. And of course, just like every organization, National Heritage Areas like media attention to help promote their profile. And it's really great for National Heritage Areas to show members of Congress, members of their community, local political leaders, that they are doing something to help a world environmental issue. And so now I'd like to turn the program over to Anna, who will talk to us about her beautiful Illinois and Michigan Canal that connects or was built to connect the Lake Michigan with the Mississippi River. So take it away, Anna. I will now stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Jamie, for inviting us today. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the first National Heritage Area, the one that's in everybody's backyard here. Just a little bit so you understand what is a National Heritage Area, how does it work? We were actually the first National Heritage Area to be designated by Congress in 1984. And originally it started with the Federal Commission and National Park Service staff. And so, but we transitioned in 2006 from a federal commission to a not-for-profit management entity. So my organization, the Canal Corridor Association, has actually been around since 1981, and we advocated for the National Heritage Area, but we weren't, we were just a partner with the federal government who had National Park Service staff. So like I said, we transitioned in 2006, and we have a board and a small staff. We get a small amount of federal funds. I actually figured it out. We got in the last 15 years that we've been doing this, we've gotten $202,000 per year. So keep that in mind as I tell you about some of the things that we do. We also have to match that amount with local funds. So that means we need to fundraise. Individuals, corporations, local governments help us match that money to do our work. So, and we have a legislative mandate. This was an individual piece of legislation passed by Congress, as I said, first in 1984, and then actually it's been reauthorized in 1994, and then again in 1999, and then 2004 or 2006. And actually we are up for reauthorization again this year. So that's just kind of a quick little overview of what a National Heritage Area is, but really the fun part is why. Why is the Illinois and Michigan Canal a National Heritage Area? So it's really all about the story. It's about why we are nationally significant in this area. So in our case, a lot of people don't understand why the Illinois and Michigan Canal would be nationally significant. So this is a panel in our visitor center, so you can come see us. I'm standing, my backdrop here is our visitor center in LaSalle. You can come see us in LaSalle. And I'll tell you about some of the other things we do and get more of the story. But basically, the Illinois and Michigan Canal was 96 miles long, going from the Chicago River on the east, southwest to the Illinois River, where the Illinois River was navigable at that time in Peru, Illinois. So that's 96 miles. And so in this illustration, you can see the Erie Canal in New York State. And then you can see our canal between Chicago and LaSalle, Peru. So these two, the Erie Canal really started in the 1820s. We finished in 1848. And what that is a water highway that would take you from New York Harbor all the way up the Hudson, through the Erie Canal, through the Great Lakes, through the I&M Canal, down the Illinois River, and into the Mississippi and to New Orleans. So this was a great boon. We've been in the news a lot lately as one of the first kind of infrastructure projects advocated by President Lincoln and various, actually it started with President Madison. You can see President Madison here on our panel, as well as President Lincoln, and then President Reagan was the one who signed our legislation. So anyway, you know, President Madison wanted to move people inland from the Atlantic seaboard to the middle part of the country, or what was then the western part of the country, in order to have a country. So that's kind of the story of the I&M Canal, is to just be a way to move the population in and settle this part of the upper Midwest. So I like to tell people, before the Erie Canal, New York and Philadelphia were the same size cities. Once the Erie Canal came, all the money moved to New York, and New York is still a financial capital. So if you think about Chicago and St. Louis, and before the canal, Chicago was basically an outpost. St. Louis was a bigger city at that point. But once the canal came, all the money moved to Chicago, and Chicago is still a financial hub and the premier Midwestern city. So that's kind of the story of the canal. There's a lot of interesting details, and you should really come see us. So anyway, our visitor center here is open and year round, and I'll talk about that a little bit more here. So ultimately, if I had to tell you what we do kind of in an elevator pitch in one sentence, it would be that we really share the story of the I&M Canal and why it's important. And I think we do that a lot of different ways. So I would say we do it through interpretation. You see our visitor center and the panels. We do it through a canal boat ride pulled by mules. We do it through 300 outdoor signs and many other programs. We do it through preservation of historic and cultural resources, historic downtowns, individual buildings. Conservation of natural resources is also important to telling this story. But I have to tell you, we are blessed with so many good conservation partners here in the greater Chicagoland that a lot of the conservation work that's done, we leave to our partners. As you can see, as I said before, remember, we get a very small amount of money. We can't do everything. And it's kind of like check. A lot of the conservation is being done by people we consider our partners. So I think stewardship is really important in telling and sharing the story, what we pass on to the next generation, how we make stewards. So I'll talk a little bit about that, as well as recreation, because we have a towpath trail along the canal. We have about 75 miles of that 96 miles that you can walk or run or ride a bike. And so that's part of the recreation. We're also blessed with many great partners, state parks and local parks and prairies and other places to recreate outside. And then I put fun activities, because I think really, if you don't have fun activities, then who are you sharing the story with? Who is coming to visit if you don't have any fun activities? So this is our boat, the Volunteer. It's named because a lot of volunteers worked a very long time to make it happen. It started as an idea about 20 years before it actually was built. We launched it in 2008. It's here in LaSalle, which is the western terminus of the canal. It's pulled by a mule. I think this is Larry. We had two mules to start with, Larry and Mo. We got middle-aged mules, so they're no longer with us, but we do have other mules now. We have period-clothed guides, and we really tell the story of the building and the operation of the canal. A lot of people just don't get it unless they see it. We've had a lot of questions like, so the mule pulls the boat? Is the mule in the water? And, you know, the whole idea of just what life was like in the 1840s, we're able to talk about on the boat ride. So come and see us. It's an hour ride. It's just an hour. We don't make you stay on the boat for 22 hours that it would have taken to go from Chicago to LaSalle in 1848. So we're open May through October. We have a lot of school groups in April and May. It holds 70 people. So we also welcome parties and weddings and motor coaches full of people. So it's a lot of fun. So in terms of interpretation, also, I wanted to mention a couple other things here. On the left is the inside of our visitor center, and obviously that's Mr. Lincoln, and he's with our captain of our canal boat. And just wanted to tell you that Mr. Lincoln and his wife and two children did ride on the Illinois and Michigan Canal in 1848, the opening season. And he was a big advocate for the canal when he was in the state legislature, and obviously for these kinds of infrastructure improvements when he was president. So we have panels in the visitor center. And as I mentioned, we also have a lot of outdoor interpretation. We have over 300 signs. On the right here is Medewan Tallgrass Prairie. They have one of our map tables, and you can learn about us we consider there's about 42 different sites within the National Heritage Area that have part of the story of why the canal was important. So we encourage everybody to go visit those sites. We do have a passport right now that goes through the end of August, a special passport with 35 sites, and you can go to your from 20 to 35 sites and be entered in to win prizes and those kinds of things. So that again is part of our interpretation and part of the fun. So the kinds of preservation kinds of things we do over the years, we have promoted historic preservation through things like National Register nominations. We've been working to rewrite the landmark nomination for the canal because it is a national landmark. We've done surveys of historic districts, especially our downtowns, which offer a lot of community development, economic development. We funded structural conditions reports on important buildings, things like that. Since 2008, when we launched the boat, we opened this visitor center, and we had the opportunity to rehab the first floor of it and make this our visitor center. Now we welcome over 80,000 people a year, at least pre-COVID. We were really happy to say we took a block on First Street in downtown LaSalle that didn't have any commercial, any retail, or I shouldn't say any retail. We had one hairdresser on the block when we started in 2008, and now the block is totally full of shops. So we're really happy that we've been able to have an economic impact in this area. This is a 1910 building. Actually, it started as a carriage shop, and it's one block up from the canal. So as I said, with conservation, we have so many wonderful partners. We have so many wonderful sites within our National Heritage Area. This is Santa Fe Prairie in Hodgkins. So right in the middle of industrial Hodgkins, there's actually 11 acres of prairie that has never been plowed up. And there is a not-for-profit group that owns and manages it. It's called Santa Fe Prairie because it was between two rail lines, which is why it was never farmed. And the Santa Fe line gave the prairie to the group. So we're pleased with all the conservation work that our partners do. I did want to point out, as part of our interpretation, we have 48 silhouettes in the landscape. And here you see Dr. Betts and Floyd Swink, two prairie pioneers. So our silhouettes enable people to learn about different stories and different people who worked and lived in the National Heritage Area. So we have signs with them. So we tell you a little bit about them, and we are undertaking new signage and with QR codes right now that you will be able to get a lot more information about the topics. So I should say we also sponsor cleanups along the canal. And again, it's just a way of us bringing our partners together. So when I talk about stewardship, I really think that education of the next generation is so important, and it's something that we can do in the National Heritage Area. This is Frank, and Frank came to our Mazon Creek Fossil Tour. We run it as a fundraiser every year in August, and it's also educational, and we're happy to have a family day. So you can see he found his fossil, and then he found the page in the book. at the fossil tour that explained what fossil he had found. So we also run other programs that are kid friendly that really encourage these kids to be stewards. We have a junior ranger program that's very close, similar to junior ranger programs at other National Park Service sites, and we have a badge. So we administer the oath. We also have some exhibits geared for kids, participate in the Illinois History Day, and have done quite a few teacher trainings in the past. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the stewardship. So there's lots of recreational opportunities in our National Heritage Area. Again, you know, we have state parks and the trail itself, and lots of other sites, lots of forest preserve sites and places like that. One of the opportunities that we found that no one was doing was no one was really doing bicycle rentals. And so we launched a bike share in 2019, just before COVID. And we've started with 25 bikes and 5 stations. Here you can see the Lockport Women's Club, who sponsored the Lockport station. So we had a few hiccups here with COVID, and we've been able to relaunch our bike share here in April. So we currently have the 25 bikes and 5 stations, but it looks like we're going to go to 75 bikes and up to 10 stations. So you can rent a bike at any of the stations, return it to any station. It's really easy, an app on your phone. So again, we've fundraised and kind of stepped in to increase the recreation with something that nobody else was doing, which is, I think, what National Heritage areas are all about. So I just wanted to say I'm a real believer in we have to have fun. And so I just thought these 2 photos reminded me of a lot of fun. Here's this little girl posing with one of our mules. You can see how big these guys are, and 1,200 pounds usually, at least. And then another young woman who is covered with junior ranger badges, and came and brought all her badges to show us. And I think she's even written a book here. So, you know, I think the key here for us is getting people here and getting them excited about what we have to offer, because without the participation, we have no community development, no economic development, no stewardship, and really no next generation to carry on. So that's kind of my message. And so we welcome, please join us, please support us, please come visit. Here's my information. And like I said, National Heritage areas are all about partnerships. So we're happy to work with anybody and everybody. So thank you so much, Jamie, for including me. And I will turn the program back over to Chris.
Thank you, Anna. That was great. Really appreciate that. Now I'm going to try to share my screen again, see if that works. Yes, it does. So I have been on Anna's canal boat, the Volunteer. I visited Anna in her beautiful visitor center that she has on her screen behind her. Really nice. And this canal boat trip, the hour long that is pulled by the mule, it's really an iconic visitor experience out there in LaSalle. And you know, when it's safe to do so, or when you feel safe to do so, I would recommend that you go out there and go see the visitor center and take the canal boat ride. Now, did you say, Anna, that you are having the ride starting this May?
Yeah, we're going to start Memorial Day weekend, and basically, you are outside on the boat, all the windows open, and as you can see here in your photo, you can ride above. It sounds like, you know, we'll still practice masks and social distancing, whatever the CDC says. But certainly we are open for business starting Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you for
The end
that.
of October, so there's plenty of time.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, Quite frankly, Anna, I wish I could just spend my job traveling to the different national heritage areas because they're so diverse and so interesting to learn the stories that are associated with them. I'm reading a book on Chicago right now, Donald Miller's book, City of the Century, and the Illinois and Michigan Canal plays a big role, you know, in that. A really interesting story. So thank you for taking us on this special trip down
Yeah,
the I&M Canal.
he was actually one of the first authors who really elaborated on the canal. A lot of early historians would start with the railroads.
Uh-huh.
So,
Right, right.
like the canal didn't exist, but there was a lot of reason that the canal helped us get the railroads here, and then helped keep the railroads competitive. And so we are a lot more competitive from the railroad perspective than St. Louis was, because people could go by water also. So there's a lot of great stories. People think the railroad put the canal out of business, but not really. So, but that's for another day, Chris.
Right, right. Well, thank you. I can't wait to come back and visit myself. So in my job as a National Park Ranger, I have the pleasure to work with people like Anna and Erin, her staff, and others, and the other executive directors around the region. So where I left off before we took this special trip down the canal was I was telling you about some of Operation Pollination's history. And so I want to go and pick up where I left off. Again, we have the national heritage areas around the United States. 3 of them, as you know, again, Northern Plains, Abraham Lincoln, and Motor Cities, they experimented with the Operation Pollination Project in 2018. And by 2020, a majority of the national heritage areas across the United States had told me that they were interested in Operation Pollination. Here in brown, you can see those that have actually so far signed up for Operation Pollination and are recruiting partners to engage in habitat restoration and education. And in February of last year, I had suggested to a group of these heritage areas that meets annually when they all assemble together in one place, that for National Pollinator Week, which is coming up in June, it's a celebration every June. It's coming up again this June. They could sign a resolution, but quite frankly, COVID-19 really put a damper on National Heritage Area participation. As we're coming out of COVID, I'm hoping that National Heritage Areas can re-engage in the project. But the third part of Operation Pollination history that I'd like to just share with you before wrapping up, and that is a non-government organization called Rotary International, which some of you are familiar with. They have an affiliate called SRAG, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. And in August of 2020, SRAG, or again, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, actually adopted the Operation Pollination Project as its own. And they immediately developed a website to help not only Rotarians, but also any organization that you might belong to or national heritage areas. If you just go to the operationpollination.net website, it shows you the 3 easy steps on how to get involved in this project. Again, Operation Pollination does not belong to anybody. Any organization can get involved. I mentioned that the national heritage areas have gotten involved, which is wonderful. Now Rotary International as an organization is involved, And any organization that wants to get involved in this project is welcome to follow this framework of Operation Pollination. When Rotary adopted the project in 2020, August of 2020, they really made tracks, because in October of that year, they also had a full-fledged article in their Rotary magazine, which is sent to 250,000 people around the United States. As I said, we're trying to recruit as many Rotarians as we can in this project. And I'm just going to leave you here and just say that, this district, which is the Rotary District in Chicago, which covers part of the canal, Anna, just so you know, they have signed a pollinator resolution, and they are now recruiting the 62 clubs, over 2,000 Rotarians in their district, to engage in habitat restoration and education activities. So before we wrap up and turn it over to any questions, I'd just like to put out there this idea that in 2021, when and only if it is safe to do so, as Anna says, follow the CDC guidelines. Might an organization that you belong to be interested in adopting the Operation Pollination Project and starting, some habitat restoration or education activities near you? Again, it's a framework. It is not a prescription of what to do. There are plenty of websites out there that can tell you what to do. This is just a framework with the resolution, a pledge form, and then the media. So in ending, I just want to open it up for any questions that any of you might have for either Anna or I. And I can't see all you, but I do appreciate the opportunity, and I know Anna does, of Jamie giving us the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to stop share, and if there's any questions, let's hear them.
Right. Thank you both. That was great. So nice to hear about some of the history and things that are maybe going on behind the scenes in our area here. Chris would like to know, do you have a map of the entire I&M Canal Trail?
So, yes, I mean, DNR has a map that's half on one side and half on the other. And if it's not on the website, I can just put it up on the website. I think that we do have so many connecting trails that go beyond in fact, if you go to the Department of Natural Resources website, the main trail is 61.5 miles, and that's called the I&M Canal State Trail. But then we have all these connecting trails. So we have trails north of Joliet, and then a lot of communities have done their trails. Medewin has trails now. All the forest preserves that are part have trails. So unfortunately, there isn't one map that's up to date with everybody's trails. But it's DNR definitely has their trail on it. So we actually were going to do a map of everything, and then COVID hit and the state rescinded all their grants. We had grant money to do it. So we'll get back to it too. So, but feel free, if you can't find anything, to just send us a little email, and we'll make sure and send something out.
And don't you also have that nice map you did a couple of years ago, Anna?
So we do have a large, let me see. We do have a bunch of brochures with the background. It's hard to see, but we do have a big map brochure that has much more than the trail. It has the 42 sites. So you can pick this up a lot of different ways. And the trail is delineated on there with mile markers, and we do have mile markers on the trail. So this is a pretty easy way to see. So yeah, you can also pick this up in many locations. So it's just the I&M Canal National Heritage Area. We call it our black band brochure. So
yeah, and by the way, that brochure is modeled after your typical national park brochure that you find in national parks. So you might also notice that the arrowhead that I'm wearing was also the arrowhead that was on Anna's brochure. And that's purposeful because national heritage areas, while the National Park Service does not manage them, we are one of the closest partners that these areas have, if not the most close partner, and we administer the program. We just make sure that the government's interests are carried out through their work plan and their annual budget. But Anna reports to a board of directors, or the commission, I guess it is, Anna, right?
No, it's a board of
A
directors.
board of directors,
Yeah.
and does not report to anybody in the National Park Service, but as the National Park Service guy who is assigned national heritage areas, I work closely with Anna and her cohorts and the other National Heritage Area executive directors, just to make sure that they have everything they need to be able to carry out the mission that the United States Congress gave them when they were established back in 1984. Again, the first national heritage area in the United States.
So I see on here that Chris asked if it could be mailed to him, and it certainly can. So if you can contact us, you can go to our website, inmcanal.org, spelling out the word and
The link in the chat.
Yeah, and you can either email us or call us, and we're happy to mail them out.
Except I have to put it in for all attendees. Let me try that again. There you go. Now I put the link in the chat for everybody. So you can go there and contact them. You can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with them too. Any of the emails that you get about this webinar are going to have my email address on them. So you're welcome to contact me as well, and I can get you to the appropriate person.
Thank you, Jamie.
Right. Any other questions? I just want to say I have not done the entire length of the canal, but I am familiar with the sites in and around Lockport, around the Gaylord building, around there, which is all very, very cool. I love the silhouettes and the little descriptions. I'm a reader. Anytime I go to a museum or something, I have to read absolutely everything that's up. And so I love walking along the canal and seeing all those little panels. And Chris says, great restaurants. Yes, absolutely great restaurants in downtown Lockport there. So, but it's a cool site. When I worked for the Forest Preserve District, I led one of their bike programs along the canal. And it was a couple mile stretch. We stopped and talked about a couple of the locks along the way and some of the history of the site. And it's really very, very interesting and a beautiful trip. So if you've got a day trip to walk along the trails, spend some time walking up and down the trails, all kinds of great wildlife, even just right there. So let's see.
Speaking of restaurants, Chris, in that building behind Anna, their visitor center, she also has a great restaurant. I happened to have lunch there one day with Anna and her mom, and it was really good food. Now, I don't know how COVID has affected that as we come out of COVID, but
yeah, we haven't reopened our restaurant yet. We call it Loch 16 Cafe. There are 15 locks on the canal, and this is kind of your last stop at Loch 16. So right now we've just reopened the visitor center and the gift shop portion 5 days a week, Thursday through Monday, 9 to 3. We're working on the food. So hopefully by the time we have the boat on Memorial Day, we'll have food back. So I know everybody keeps coming in and crying to us that they want lunch or breakfast, but we're working on it.
So Jeannie wants to know, what is the condition of the trail? Several years ago, there were some portions that were washed out.
Yeah, it's still, we still have a washout between Utica and Ottawa. And they need to put a bunch of culverts in. And so it probably won't get fixed till next summer. DNR is finally on it. We have great guys on the ground. It's just been a series of issues with funding and a lot of those kinds of things, budget issues. People have put, if you're adventurous, I've been told that you can either wade through whatever's there or carry your bike across. And sometimes people put down boards and things, so sometimes it's easier to cross than not. But there is a break in the trail right there, and then also the Nettle Creek Aqueduct just west of Morris is out. They're working on that also, but it won't be done this summer. So there are city streets you can ride around that. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, I want to thank you both for taking time out of your day to talk to us about your sites. This has been really great learning more about these sites and the Operation Pollination program. And I really do appreciate both of your time. So with that, we'll wrap up. And I want to thank all of you for attending today. We hope to see you back next week to learn some more about some singing insects. And then the week after that for some shade gardening tips and techniques. So thanks again, everyone. And we hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.